Part of what I think is so important about celebrating commemorative months like Black History Month is that they act as the beginning of the conversation, not the end. This is a great way to get people engaged around really important issues and interests within the Black community. And I think people are going to be really impressed with the diversity of films and events and the ease of access. We've worked really hard to make this a really accessible program. All of our events will be available on our MKE Film Facebook page, our Black Lens Facebook page, and our MKE Film YouTube page. So you can go to either of those pages and watch events for free. Our films will be available on our watchmkefilm.org page from February 1st through February 28th.
Sorry, Maureen, you're on mute.
Apologies for that delay. I will start again with here we go. We are in the third week of Milwaukee Film's 2021 Black History Month program presented by Molson Coors. Now that you can hear me, I can let you know my name is Maureen Post of the Cultures and Communities Department at Milwaukee Film. For the month of February, Milwaukee Film is dedicating its new programming to films and events that celebrate, honor, and elevate Black culture and traditions. We are in the third week of the month, but films are available virtually in your home at any time. So there's still over a week to engage with 30 films and a dozen events that inspire conversation, celebration, and community. I would specifically like to call out a one-night-only screening of The Lost Tapes, a Malcolm X documentary presented entirely through his speeches, newscasts, and rarely seen archival footage. It will be available just this Sunday, February 21st, on the anniversary of his assassination. For all information, you can head to mkfilm.org/BHM. This evening, we have a beautiful collaboration with Tarik Moody, Director of Digital Strategy and Innovation for Radio Milwaukee. What you're about to watch is a live sneak peek of his upcoming podcast, Diverse Disruptors. Diverse Disruptors features those leaders who found their own way to innovate and did so with inclusion and accessibility at the forefront rather than an afterthought. I will let him introduce our panel, but before that, we are going to collectively watch a short film, A Fresh Perspective. A Fresh Perspective tells the story of 3 African Americans in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who create the nation's first ever Black Beer Festival, a historic event aiming to diversify the industry while promoting a new narrative in craft beer. Watch the short film, stay tuned, join us immediately after the screening for a discussion featuring tech entrepreneurs and innovators. Feel free to enter questions, thoughts, comments into the chat from wherever you're watching. Stay for the short film.
Check it out. We got it.
We had to move these, and like originally when we had decided we were gonna move like Thursday. I keep waiting. I keep
I'm excited. Like, I don't even know how to. This is all bubbling up. It's real now. I mean, look in this room, man. It's all different shades, all different colors, all people backgrounds.
This is just crazy. We're at a fucking brew festival, and this is the most Negroes I've ever seen in a brew fest. Like, I didn't know it was gonna be like, and it just we ain't even get it started yet. We still got like 500-600 people coming to this bitch. A part of this festival is, one, representation. Representation matters. So we're bringing out successful people that are already, doing that look like us, so that, like, we are inspired to do that same thing.
We're trying to conjure up, we're trying to promote, black influence on the craft industry.
I ain't never had that kind of a reaction any time in my life for doing anything. Like, God damn, that is a hell of a...
We had been doing the podcast, so I'd say for 2 years at that point when we first collaborated with Mike. The cool thing about Mike was he had been traveling the nation, going to all of these black-owned breweries.
I got into craft beer around 2005, and I met a guy that had a brewery in a neighborhood I was living in. Went inside and met a great group of guys from East End Brewery that kind of taught me about what craft beer was all about, how it's made, what are the ingredients, different styles. I kind of wondered, was there anybody else that felt like me? And found out that there were many brewers out there that were actually making beer. So with that, I reached out. And once I did, I realized on a grander scale, these stories aren't actually being heard. They're not being published, they're not being broadcasted. And I felt, hey, that's a lane that someone could fill. And I decided, let's explore this a little further. Cheers. And that's the origins of black brew culture. Just kind of reaching out to people of color who are in the craft beer industry, who have vested interest, equity, or actually brew, or even consumers who just like craft beer, and kind of helping them tell their story on a grander scale.
And, me and Mike kind of got to talking, about a beer festival and how that could bring the black community in a way that is beneficial to themselves. Going into it, the goal was to start conversations between various communities and make a change for the good, for our people. I mean, it's a billion-dollar industry, and we are the most economically disparaged category in America. So, this is an opportunity for us.
There are more motherfuckers in that Hall of Fame than there are black brewers. Yeah, I mean, like, y'all the OGs of this black. Yeah, I mean, wave that we trying to start here. So, like, we appreciate y'all coming down.
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
So now you're a double minority in this industry. Like, where do you think you were getting the most flack in that regard? Not only being African American, but being a woman first.
People don't really see me as a brewer. They think I'm the Harlem brewer, the Sugar Hill girl. I'm out there to promote the beer. Where's your outfit? You gotta kind of be a little less.
You're the brewer? Yeah. Oh, well, awesome.
When you look at brewing history, there's like the broader brewing history of how beer evolved. I spent some time in Africa and met African women brewers that brewed traditional beers. They've been doing it for thousands of years. All of our culturally, as we look around the room, African American, European descent, we have traditions of brewing. African Americans and African diasporic people are no exception to that. Many of those people that came from Europe brought those traditions with them. The nature of our history of African Americans being brought here as slaves, we weren't allowed to continue the practice of many of our culture and things that we knew how to do or knew how to brew. Those are things that we're trying to shine a light on so that we can all sort of connect and understand and share ideas and recipes around our common history.
All I got is a brown ale left.
My
father used to brew wine, so I really got interested in the whole brewing process. I didn't want to take any large loans, so I took money out of a 401k. I converted half my garage into a brewery.
It's a struggle, you know.
Ain't no shit. He had a 401k. I don't even. You can't struggle with a 401k. That done eliminated 38% of the people in this room.
I don't believe that at least the larger craft breweries target African Americans for their brands. I can speak at home. If I go to a neighborhood store, I won't see any craft beer inside the store. I'm gonna see Old English or Budweiser, but you're not gonna see any type of craft beer, which I believe is a mistake, but they don't target us in their ads.
A lot of craft beer is basically marketed to middle class, upper middle class, or upper class white people that fit certain demographics in terms of both the marketing and the consumer presence. The importance of Fresh Fest is not simply to be a moment in history, because we want to be more than a moment in history. We want to move from this historic event to tradition.
You want to try Die Hard is Not a Christmas movie?
That is what I want to try.
Yeah, dope ass collaboration with Dancing on myself, and it's fire. But I want to know your opinion. Die Hard a Christmas movie?
To me, Fresh Fest is groundbreaking. We needed this. People of color needed something like this, especially everyone who's new to craft beer or those of us that have been big advocates for craft beer. When you think about craft beer, especially for me, I mean, you think white boys with beards, flannel shirts, your typical brewer. People of color just really have no main interest in craft beer, and I'm hoping to be part of that movement to try to help bring more diversity to craft beer. So that means more black people drinking craft beer, more Asians, Mexicans, everyone actually owning breweries or home brewing to get into the method of making beer.
An event like Fresh Fest exposes the folks in this craft beer industry that don't look like what people think craft beer is. You have people of color. You have women in this industry that are making wonderful strides. I want to see this industry shift to where these beer festivals look like what we just saw.
Fresh Fest is a situation where we had the choice to get up and get out and talk to one another and create something that lowered the barriers of racism. So as you see, we had all these beautiful brown people out here, but we also had a ton of white faces out here, and that's a great thing. So I just think that Fresh Fest was a big thing in kind of helping lower those bars for a little while and remind us all that we have the options to make our own paths, to write our own stories.
Look, in my hand, I hold, this is serious business, man. Let me tell y'all something. Fresh Fest 2018, man, this is history. This is historic, and we want to thank y'all for being a part of history, man. We can't do this without the craft industry, without the supporters. I'm going to read something, man. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, William Peduto, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh, do hereby declare August 11th, 2018 as Fresh Fest 2018 Day here in our most beautiful city of Pittsburgh. Give it up for yourself, man. We official as hell right now. It's Fresh Fest Day. 1, 2, 3.
I'm a rich man, coming straight from the ditch, man. Hanging on like the stick man. I was falling. Nobody's calling. And so I'm balling. So they took me to the river. Shook me in the water and cleansed my soul. I'm a rich man, coming straight from the ditch man. Hanging on like the stick man.
If we could ask the question, why craft? If you can give just a small pitch, why craft beer each of you?
I think if you're going to drink beer and in the age that we live in, where we're conscious about what we buy and what the things that we buy stand for, craft beer is an important product to support, because more than likely this is going to be a product that actually supports your community and what you do.
You really have to expand your palate and your knowledge to really enjoy craft beer.
With craft, it's not just a mass-produced beer. It's not like a Budweiser where you're just getting that beer. That's what we sell. That's all you're gonna get. I've had mango beers. I've had chili beers. Like, you can have whatever you want.
Think of it like food. With food, you have a broad spectrum of styles and flavors, and craft beer offers the same thing too.
A lot of beers can be brought to your palate just by asking a simple question of what is it made of, what's in it, or describe the type of beer that you're looking to drink, and maybe that brewery will have it.
Come up to us. We're here now. We can show you. We can tell you. We can embrace, your love for craft beer. So just drink beer is good. Drink it.
If you only have a certain type of person with a certain voice in an industry, then you're only going to get a certain product. I hope that the beer industry has more diversity, whether or not it's because the beer industry sees a need for it or because we kick the fucking door down. Either way, I would like to see more ice cream and Moscato beers.
That was amazing. That was fresh perspective. Thank you, Milwaukee Film and Black Lens, for putting that on. I'm very familiar with the Fresh Fest. Actually, their Facebook page, before again, has that used to have a header of People's Beer, which is the first African-American owned brewery right here from Milwaukee back in the late 60s, early 70s. And the founder was Theodore Mack. Just want a little trivia out there. And also on the brewing tip, I am a big sake fan. I actually took a test to become a certified sake professional because my goal is to have a sake brewery by the time I turn same age as one of my guests here, Michael. I think he's older than me. Again, my name is Tarik, a.k.a. the architect from 88.9 Radio Milwaukee. I am proud host of a new podcast coming 88.9 called Diverse Disruptors. First season launches March 1st. And one of our guests on a panel will be part of season 1, Lita Mallet, but we'll get to her in a minute. But I want to introduce our panelists, Aisha Bowe, aerospace engineer, CEO, founder of STEM Board, Michael Ford, fellow architect, founder, designer, and of Hip Hop Architecture Camp, which is going on right now in Milwaukee for Milwaukee students, and Lita Mallet, an amazing journey. I get to little know about her. She is the founding principal of Milwaukee Excellence Charter School. And let's kick it off. Before I had some questions, I want to do some introductions, and I want to kick it off to you, Aisha. But let's start off with some proper introductions. Tell me a little about your story. I'm going to start with Aisha.
Hi, well, thank you for having me. I never thought that I would ever be here or become much of anything in life. So this is always like a delightful surprise. I started my degree in engineering with pre-algebra in a community college because, quite frankly, my dad bribed me to take math. And who am I to tell him how to spend his money, right? Hey, if you want to pay for the class, I'll take it. And that actually, through a series of tests and challenging circumstances, turned into a love of math and science that propelled me to complete 2 degrees in aerospace engineering from Michigan and eventually become an engineer at NASA. And as you can imagine, getting to NASA felt like a dream, but also what seemed to be a dream was my existence to the students that I got a chance to evangelize STEM careers to, because they would literally say, wait a second, are you sure that you're from NASA? And I'd be like, yes, I am. I'm supposed to be here. And they were like, no, we don't believe you. I mean, I've never met a more discriminating audience than my high school and middle school students were like, we need to see your badge. We need to see proof. We need to see your degrees, right? We want to make sure that you're actually telling us the truth because we never seen anybody like you, and we're not sure that you are actually part of NASA. And so I founded a company after leaving there, and I spent the last 7 years doing exactly that, trying to create content and curriculum that can help inspire those around the country to think differently about STEM fields and what's possible for them.
Thank you. We'll come back to you. But I want to go to Michael. A little about your background, your story.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Excited to join this panel and learn about the work that everyone is doing. But I'm Mike Ford. I'm originally from Detroit. I am based in Madison right now, and knew from a young age that I wanted to be an architect. After going through some career explorations in Detroit, where I thought I was going to become a car designer. And I learned early on that a new car is going to come out that next year, and you might not be the designer of that car, that second iteration. And everyone may not be able to drive this car that you design. And that became a problem for me as like maybe like fifth or sixth grade. I was understanding that, automotive design wasn't my thing. I wanted to have a longer legacy. I wanted more people to be able to experience what it is that I designed. And someone told me I should look at architecture, and I never looked back. But today, I've had the honor and privilege of working at some great architecture firms early on in my career that allowed me to mix Black music and architecture somehow or some way. Worked on the Motown Museum expansion in Detroit. Worked on Louis Armstrong Park in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. So I got to mix Motown and architecture, then jazz and architecture, and now I'm working on the Universal Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx, which is currently gearing up to break ground. So now I'm mixing hip hop and architecture. And I've taken all those experiences and created the Hip Hop Architecture Camp, which is my way of getting young people to look at architecture as a career choice, but more than that, allowing them to express their creativity in a new medium. And Tarik, I think you're muted.
Oh, I'm a head of digital at the station. That's pretty bad. Let's try that again. Finally, but not least, Lita Mallet, I got to know about your journey. You had an interesting journey. So tell me your origin story and how'd you become a principal of a charter school?
Yeah, so thank you for having me again. My name is Lita Mallet. I am born and raised right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Went to the fantastic Rufus King High School, where I was valedictorian. After graduating from Rufus King, I went to Los Angeles and went to Southern California, where I majored in biomedical engineering. And so I was an engineer. I had a passion for science and math, and those were always the subjects I pursued. And my mom is actually the one that told me that I should pursue this degree called biomedical engineering, where that combined all of these different concepts of pre-med and computer science and electrical engineering and all of these things together into one major. I worked as an engineer for a while, as a researcher actually. And I worked in a neuroengineering lab focusing on retinal prosthetics. And I volunteered in South Central LA at local schools, and I helped develop a computer science curriculum at a local high school in the Los Angeles Unified School District. And that is where I really solidified my passion for computer science. I had so much fun helping them develop their curriculum and actually start their AP computer science class. And I said, you know what, I'm pursuing this. And so I went back to USC and got my master's in education this time, and focusing on mathematics and STEM. And after I finished that, I went to the Bay Area. I helped found a school in the Bay Area in California, where there was the first school, the tech school, first school in the district that every single student, every single freshman took a computer science class. And so that was, at that time, very unusual. And so I helped pilot that program. And so I was in the heart of Silicon Valley, and I saw just the opportunity. So being so close, being able to drive to Google, to Facebook, to Apple, and seeing the partnerships that came with being at a school with those companies, and students being able to quite literally see the possibilities right outside their backyard, it did something for me, and I knew that I had to come back to my community and I had to come back to Milwaukee. And so I came back to Milwaukee a few years ago. I worked for a network where we piloted the first coding class within that organization before I went over to Milwaukee Excellence Charter School, and so Milwaukee Excellence was founded in 2016 by a fantastic man by the name of Maurice Thomas. But they also aligned with this understanding that computer science and is a fundamental literacy. Tech education is a fundamental thing, just like reading, math, and writing. And so starting in sixth grade, every single student takes computer science. And then last year, we founded the high school where all of our ninth graders took the intro to computer science class. And those founding ninth graders are now my 10th graders, and they're taking their first AP computer science class right now. So in my free time, I'm pursuing my doctorate degree in educational leadership, but my work is really being in the community and helping us being an advocate for little girls and little boys that look like me that grew up in Milwaukee, and so that they can see themselves in this technology world. I think you're muted again, Tarik.
You think I went to like some school in Detroit or something? I don't know. But before we begin, I had a question about for Lita, but there's some big news that happened today, and I want to direct this to Aisha, being at NASA, a rocket scientist. You might have heard there was something that happened on Mars. So Aisha, tell me, I assume you were geeking out over this. What was going through your mind? What were you doing during this day? Did you take the day off? Talk to me about you're being so close to an organization like NASA and having the big news today. What was your day to today?
I mean, it was thrilling. Today was a huge day for science. For those of you who are not following the landing of the Perseverance rover, please take some time and look into it. You're talking about the culmination of several years of planning and preparation and good old-fashioned ingenuity to solve what is one of the hardest challenges humans have ever faced, landing something on another planet. And to think that not only did they do that, but they enabled a mission that may culminate in the return of samples from Mars. And so the whole idea that we as humans continue to look further out to learn more about ourselves and our life here is alive and well with this mission. They may find more water, they may find microbes. Who knows what they're going to find? But that's what's going on at Mars right now. And so the rover has landed, and almost immediately it started checking out the surroundings. We already have images, and people are trying to say, okay, well, what does this mean? But just to put this in perspective, something that was going approximately 20,000 kilometers per hour did not slam into the surface of the planet that it was attempting to land on. And oh, by the way, there's a 7+ minute delay between Earth and Mars communications. And so could you imagine if you had to drive and you had a 7-minute delay between when something happened and when you had to react, let alone going at 20,000 kilometers and sticking the landing and having the day culminate in images was just phenomenal. And so I'm completely and totally excited. I'm ecstatic. And I hope that a lot of people not only see the mission, but understand that we, the US, is still in the business of space, and there are plenty of amazing jobs. And if you go to Milwaukee School of Excellence, or if you have mentors like Ms. Mallet, you guys can be part of the mission too.
Cool. The next question is for everyone or anyone who wants to answer it. I was reading the other day, according to an analysis by an outlet called Undark, the number of bachelor degrees awarded to Black students in STEM field peaked in the early 2000s, and ever since it's been falling. Why do you think that is, and what is needed to change that trajectory? So that's for anybody who wants to take that.
I think that the focus, and I want to invite Ms. Mallet here, this is a great question, right? Because I think the focus is far too often on the students and not the institutions. I think the question needs to be, what are we doing as a disservice to those students that in some ways not giving them the access, the exposure, or the resources that are needed to pursue those degrees? Because I can tell you that intelligence is not the problem. We have more than enough capable and gifted students of color to meet the demands of the nation and the emerging workforce. But the question is, are they getting the resources that they need in order to be successful?
Yeah, just to jump into that, I'm hearing some feedback. There we go. Yeah, just to jump into that, I think that we need to talk about the preparation in our schools early on. And so, one, our students are more than capable, right? There is talent. They are smart. They are brilliant. But how often are we saying, you know what, I am going to give all of my students a shot at this just so that they can see themselves in this? And so I'll think about my experience, even my experience in undergrad, where my major started off with 10 Black girls and about 15 Black men. And by the end of my freshman year, it was only 3 Black women left and one male. That's ridiculous. And I also think about my personal experience where I got into that classroom. I got into that physics class. I got into that first intro to Python class, and I felt like I did not belong. Although I went to a top school in the state, although I was valedictorian, I had never seen myself in technology. I had never been pushed. I had never been exposed to some of the things that those students in that class had been. And I felt out of place. It was tough. And and you want to give up because you don't know. You don't feel like you have had a level playing field. And that's when you start to really think, what was my education up until this point? Like, this was a disservice to me. And so I think that it starts with, yes, you have to see people that look like you. And so you have to see yourself in technology, but you have to make sure that they have access and opportunities to engage in these subjects. It's not an option, but I'm going to make sure you can at least try it. Let's give you some at-bats with it so you can make an informed decision. And so if you do pursue this in college, it's not the first time you've seen it. You don't feel like an outsider. You have other mentors who can help you through that journey, but I think it does start before students even get to college.
How about you, Michael? Especially towards architecture. So no, both Michael and I studied architecture degrees. My Howard University, we started our freshman year. We had about almost 100 students and graduated like 20, and I barely graduated. Don't tell anybody, but I did finish. But I'm not in architecture anymore. That's also a problem. Like, your focus get more in architecture. So what are some of the issues you see, and how are you trying to address it?
Well, I can't let you slide on the Detroit comment. So first, shout out to everybody in Detroit, especially Detroit Public Schools and my alma mater, Cass Tech, one of the best schools in the nation. But I a couple of things. One is, when I went to high school, as a high school student, we started off our freshman year with over 1,200 students, and our orientation was look to the left, look to the right. Those 2 people will not be here when you graduate. So it's a public school that you have to test into. And, you had a curriculum. And fortunately and unfortunately, that prepared me for college, because similar story, architecture school, I think no matter whether it's an HBCU or a PWI, retention in schools of architecture has always been an issue. And when we think about, African Americans exploring careers in STEM fields, one of the issues that organizations such as the American Institute of Architects or the National Council of Architecture Registration Boards, what they have said is early exposure is a reason why, we have a decline in degrees in fields specifically about architecture, but in STEM overall. There's also been studies about popular culture and what it is that our young people see. You can look at the increase in like nursing, but then also like culinary arts when you think about some of the television shows. And it's been a lot of academic studies about what's happening in popular culture. But when it comes to us and getting in STEM, I think early exposure in a culturally relevant way is something that we're missing. And then once people are in schools, schools must look at their retention rates. Scholarships are not enough. What are the holistic wraparound services that you are providing? We still have, racist ideologies that are running our institutions, our professors, the deans of schools. What is it that reduces that retention rate? And again, a scholarship is not enough. We must question the system that has been in place that still have us rewarding the first of anything, and it's 2021.
Tarik, may I ask, because I always found this to be surprising, and I really want to hear what Principal Mallet has to say about this, because I personally was shocked when I started to realize that there are schools here in the US where you can get a 4.0, but not be eligible to go to university and study a science degree because you didn't take the prerequisites, because your school didn't require that you had certain hours of math and science to even be prepared for meeting the admissions criteria. And here at Lingo, one of the things that we really worked to do was to create a curriculum framework that aligned to national learning standards. But even in that, we had to hook into math and science standards more often than not, as opposed to computer science standards. And then I talked to some of the more affluent schools, and they're just like, well, we teach what we want. We can determine if we teach a standard or we don't teach a standard. We're more focused on getting the kids well-rounded skills to expose them to the workforce, because they believe that a student needs to have roughly 100 hours of exposure to programming before they're prepared for an entry-level programming job. So Principal Mallet, do you think that some of this is really rooted in inadequate standards around evolving technology areas?
Yeah, I think that makes a echo again, but I think that it's definitely rooted in that for sure. I think there's a few other areas too. I think when we talk about what our expectations are for our students, right? And that's really what it is. As educators, whatever expectation you have for your students will rise to that expectation. So if it's here, that's where they're going to rise to. But if it's here, it might be a journey, but they're going to rise to that expectation. So it's about what our students can accomplish. And then from those beliefs, that opens the door for what opportunities we provide. And so if I think that computer science, for some reason, is just too challenging for these students, I may not offer them that class. So they never get exposed to it. They don't even know what it's about. I think about a student that I have right now who, when I first offered computer, we said that everybody's going to take this computer science class. Her response is, I just want to graduate. I don't need this. What is this? What if I don't want to be an engineer, right? And then I think about now that same student, same one. She doesn't know I know this at all, but she emailed the computer science teacher like, hey, I'm getting these emails from the College Board, and I'm liking this class. I'm thinking about pursuing a degree in this. Are there some internships or summer things that I can do with computer science? That same student who gave me the biggest pushback. And I think about if she was not at my school, what would have been her trajectory? Would she have known that she was interested in this field and that she was capable of it? And she's getting an A in computer science, AP computer science right now. Would she have known that she was capable of that? And so I think that it really comes down to our beliefs about what our students can achieve and what they can't, regardless of their background, regardless of their circumstances. They are brilliant, and it's our job as educators to make sure that we provide those opportunities.
Wait, quick comedic thing here. Has anybody seen the Serena Williams documentary? And do you guys remember when they were really young and they were getting interviewed, and the reporter was like, why do you think that you can be the best in the world? And the father was like, this interview's over. They're going to be world champions. They're champions. This interview's over. And I love that. I think very strongly and that we need to just be like, hey, all of you are geniuses. We expect nothing better than greatness from you. Let's get it.
Period. That's it.
And on On that note, Renell brought up an interesting point. Actually asked this question of one of the guests I have in the coming season, Arlen Hamilton, some of you might know of Backstage Capital, one of the like leading VC venture capital firms. Talk about imposter syndrome. His question was, how do we prevent our young people from shutting down due to imposter syndrome? The question I want to ask is, how any of you have to deal with imposter syndrome, and how do you get over it? I think that's the best way to like answer that question. Is like, an example. So I don't know if anybody's had to deal with that in their careers. I don't know, Lita, Michael, Aisha, go ahead. Aisha?
Oh, I was waiting for someone else to jump into this one, but I not only deal with it, I combat it on a daily basis. I would love to tell you that I've slayed that dragon, but I feel like every phase of my life, there's a new dragon. And initially, it was just feeling like I didn't belong. I worked longer and harder to try to prove myself to my engineering peers, only to realize that the yardstick kept changing in length. And from there, I said, you know what, I'm going to stop trying to prove anything to anyone but myself. But moving from being in a very structured role to I'm going to be a CEO and I'm going to run a company. I mean, it's constantly, well, why aren't you venture backed? And why aren't you this? Or why aren't you that? It doesn't matter that I was able to get on the Inc. 5000 list without any of that, right? And it's just constantly having to say, you know what? The only person that I need to be better than is the person that I was yesterday, and being self-affirming. And I didn't learn any of that growing up, right? Like I literally had to go out and figure out how to develop the skills to combat imposter syndrome, because it is alive and it's alive and well in our society today. And a lot of the societal narratives that we have contribute to it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that when I combat that every day as well. And as much as I can, do the self-affirmations and things every day to affirm myself, what has helped me the most is having mentors and people in my corner that look like me, that believe in me, is to say, I believe in you. I believe in your vision. I believe in what you're going to, that constant reminder. And that's important. That's really important, because you can really get into do I belong here? Am I too young? Am I the only Black person here? Like, you can really get into that and really psych yourself out. But it's important, I think, for us as a community to make sure that we, one, are seeking those mentors, and two, we're being the mentors for other people coming up right now, so that they don't have to face some of the challenges that are going to come and those insecurities that are going to come by themselves.
Yeah, if I do just a quick addition, I mean, you guys, you ladies, covered that question pretty thoroughly, but I would add that for me, in talking with young people, that idea of being the only one, your mistakes are highlighted, and your mistakes are almost celebrated. It's like, I told you, and then it makes you start to doubt, like, maybe I shouldn't be the one. But no, I come from a hip hop mindset. And what I like to tell young people to get over those issues is that the entire world, and I'm going to flip the meaning of imposter syndrome here, but the entire world is impersonating you. All right. They're literally trying to be you. They're telling you to stop walking like that, stop talking like that, stop dressing like that. You're making up words. It's like every word is made up. Tell me one that's not. Why can't I make up words? And we make up words, and our words are disseminated across the globe, where people in other countries are saying what our young folks from Detroit or Chicago, New York, right? Our young people are saying in their neighborhoods, right? And now Webster's and everyone else wants to catch up and start to validate the words. Like, we didn't need your validation. It is a language. It has a meaning, and it is being used. Like, tell me another civilization or set of people who are consistently making up new words. And it's young folks. It's 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kids who are the innovators, right? We have a lot of people who are duplicators and think that they are validators, and often left out are the originators. And I let people know that they're copying you, whatever you do. The way that you wear your clothes, because you had to wear your big brother clothes that's 20 pounds heavier and 6 inches taller. You rock those clothes so fly that people had to start making baggy style clothes because it was uncool to wear clothes that fit. We want to be like you. All right. You look at every marketing agency. All right. They're walking like you. They're talking like you to sell you products while also shutting you down. So this idea of imposter syndrome, just flipping it on its head and doing some wordplay, everybody's impersonating you. So how do we allow our young people to not be ripped off and impersonated, but allow them to bring that genius that they have and infiltrate all of the professions that we're talking about today?
Some very powerful words there. Thank you. I want to go back to Lita. One of the reasons I was interested in talking to you, I read a story, it was a Milwaukee News Service. I think it was Milwaukee News Service, about you set this really interesting goal of having quadruple amount of Black students that take the AP Computer Science exam in Wisconsin. Talk to me, what inspired you to have that goal, and why is that goal so important? And then give me some numbers of like how many Black students in Wisconsin were taking it before your goal.
Yeah, definitely. So just to start with the numbers. So the number of students in the state of Wisconsin, right, that are taking the AP Computer Science exam every year, and well, last year, I should say, was 23. 23 Black students in the entire state, not 23%, 23 students in the entire state took AP Computer Science. And just think about that. Think about the amount of students just in Milwaukee alone that we serve that are Black and brown, Black students that did not have that opportunity. And I just thought that was just unacceptable. And so when I saw the work that my students were doing as ninth graders, I said, there's no way you guys are going to knock that exam in that class out of the park. And here comes, I was a former computer science teacher myself. And so I said, we're going to take this AP Computer Science class. And so, just with my school and my students alone, we have quadrupled the amount of Black students that take that exam. And I think I talk about that same story of that student who didn't see herself as being or as a computer science student, or why she needs to take it, or the importance. That's the reason I do it. And so I have this hashtag that we created, that I created at Milwaukee Excellence, called No Dreams Deferred. And that's what it comes down to. And whatever hopes and dreams students have, it's my job to make sure that they can make a choice about what their lives will look like. And the only way you can make that choice is if you have access and opportunities to make that informed decision. And if you never take that computer science class, if you never had that at bat with that AP Computer Science class, is that really a choice of what career you've taken or what career you go down? No, it's not, because you haven't even had a chance to engage with it. And so I know we all just watched recently the Growing Up Milwaukee film, and that's a real thing. And those opportunities that we have an obligation to providing our students are happening at my school. And so that's why that AP Computer Science class was so important to me, because one, I knew the capabilities of my students, and I was not going to hoard that opportunity from them.
Thank you. I'm just so inspired by that. And like, I've been like talking about your story to so many people in the tech space. Like, you need to talk to Lita. She can help you with your pipeline right now. You need to hire her. Aisha, we're going to go around here. Aisha, you worked at NASA, which is like cool in itself. You're like, oh my God, you work at NASA. This is so cool. I got a person working at NASA. And then like, turns out you left NASA. Like, what? One, why did you leave NASA? And you went, and then what inspired you to leave NASA? And then why did you create the business STEM board? Tell me that story.
Yeah, let me tell you, leaving NASA was not a popular decision in my family. They were like, excuse me? So you're leaving your government job for what now? I think everybody thought that I had lost my marbles when I said, I'm bigger than the position that I'm in now. You just can't see it. And what I love about Principal Mallet, I'm like, can we just clone her? Like, can we just clone her and then drop her in every district in every state in the country? Is that desire to say, I'm not just going to tell you about the dream. I'm going to show you the dream. And that's what propelled me, because I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I've made it, but I felt alone. And I was experiencing all these cultural issues where you had a small fraction of the community that was African American and technical, and everyone's trying to solve the same problem. Silicon Valley is highlighting diversity and the lack thereof. And I'm just sitting here like, you know what? I love my job. I love NASA, and this was everything I wanted to be in life. But now I have a role to play in making sure that we have an American dream. And that means that I've got to go out and do something. And that became the early days of STEM Board. And so we as a company provide engineering services to the US federal government. And I look at it as a corporate tithe. I take 20%, and I've from day one invested it in education and outreach on our profit margin, because US taxpayer dollars pay the government to purchase our services. So I'm going to reinvest that back into communities. And because I'm not a nonprofit, I can do what I think should be done for year after year after year. We've had STEM programs for 6+ years that we've developed and executed, supporting organizations like Inroads in multiple states. And that's another conversation that I really wish was had more among the community about being a profitable enterprise. I understand the role of nonprofits, but if you really want to have a long-term sustained influence, you got to be able to write some checks, whether it's to fund your political, candidate, or to really support students and schools that need resources for the long run. And so all of that is behind what we're doing at STEM Board and what we're doing at Lingo, and why I'm so excited to see that we're joined in this transformation by educators and schools like Milwaukee, Excellence, who are just like, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to create these students for industry and demonstrate that what everybody's saying it's just wrong, right? We have the talent, they just need the opportunity.
Thank you. Again, your story is also very inspiring as well. And Michael's story is very inspiring because, I feel like we're kind of connected through the design world. But when I first heard about you, I was connected through you from a fellow Howard, Prescott, Tim. Like, even though you're in Madison, I get hooked up from a Howard University fellow alum in architecture in Oakland. Tell me, hey, do you know about this Michael Ford? He's doing this hip hop thing with architecture. I'm like, what? How do you know something about in Wisconsin? I'm right here an hour away. But tell me, Michael, I was so fascinated by this whole concept when I first saw it. I think you did a TED Talk. Where did the idea of marrying hip hop and architecture come from? And how does it work? Talk to me, how does the camp work? Tell me about the programming.
Yes, so the hip hop architecture camp, just a little background on architecture. Less than 2% of architects in the United States are African American. There's something like, I think, less than 515 architects have ever been Black women. So that's less than a half of a percentage point. So Black people make up a very low number of architects, which means for all of us, we are experiencing space from mostly a white male perspective. And beyond this idea of needing to diversify architecture, by having more cultures and people with the ability to create space, we can really experience architecture in the way that it should be experienced. We can look at some of the most complex, innovative architecture in the world. So if you go back to the Mother Lane, look at like the pyramids in Giza, architecture that we're still trying to figure out. How did they do it? how is it so aligned with the solar system, that precision? And it's architecture that is, deeply rooted in the culture of the Egyptians. So as architecture has become commodified, and Black folks have been pushed out, you can argue that architecture has not been the same since we were the first to do it. That's my statement. So when I introduce people to architecture, I don't want to say that, less than 2% are African American. It's only about 515 Black women. I want to say that you were the first. And I look at hip hop lyrics, people like Nas, we got Rhapsody, Lauryn Hill, right? And let's explore their lyrics where they talk about the first architects, the first scientists, right? The first mathematicians. And we explore architecture through this lens of hip hop culture. And in the end, architecture is something that's beyond bricks and mortar. We create what I call incubators of culture. Designers dictate how you move around in a space, how and where you interact with other people. Like someone designed where you sleep, where you eat dinner. Someone has already thought about that. They have determined how much sunlight you're going to get in your space. And imagine this. Imagine if they don't care about you. And now they have that much power over how you live your day, over how your culture starts to grow. So architecture is something that's beyond bricks and mortar, and we need more Black people in a profession that will care for people who do not have that seat at the table.
And a good example of that when architecture school is sort of like, the project in Chicago. They designed that without thinking about who's living there. And I remember my history professor, Professor Chase, kind of interesting guy, was talking about like those projects created shadows, which created mistrusts, which created elements of violence and crime. And those towers got away from the verticality, got away from neighbors, and people communicating. So architecture affects how people behave. And especially like you just said, Michael, not having Black people at the table or people from the community who was using the space, they're being left out of conversation that affects them. And that's basically how he explained what the projects were. Like it became how the design, like ideally they thought it was, this is great, saving space, but they didn't think about how people communicate and trust each other. Those buildings created mistrust. I know we got a few more minutes left, but I just want to try to get some other questions in. One, if someone's listening to this discussion, an ally or a parent or whatever, and they want to help and get involved in inspiring youth, what's some advice you would give? This is for anyone.
I think that if they want to get involved in inspiring youth, I think that we need to break down those barriers that exist. I think about partnering. So partner with your local school or your local principal. We want and we desire to help our students, and we desire those partnerships. And join the conversation. There's a lot of, we know that this is important. We know that we need to have some policy changes that really put STEM education and computer science education at the forefront and as a priority. So join that conversation. Be a mentor. And that's the biggest thing. If you can do anything, if you can mentor, talk to some of our young people, let them know that they can do it, give them advice, give them support, be that mentor for them. If anything, I think that would be the best way you can start to get involved.
I want to emphasize that a little bit goes a really, really long way. I think that when we talk about mentorship, people think, oh my gosh, this is going to be a commitment and I've got my kids and I've got my home. When really just one conversation can change someone's life. And so I ask anybody who can hear us speaking, just spend some time, maybe 30 minutes or an hour, talking to someone in your community, at your church, or at your school, or your kid's school, or wherever that might be interested in how you got to where you got. And the other thing is, for those of us who are professionals, and I like to share this with individuals who are maybe not from a minority background. You have power. You can influence the narrative. Some of the best mentors, sponsors, and allies I had were old white men who said, I want to change the narrative. So I'm going to do little things like I'm going to stand up in front of the room and I'm going to introduce you because I'm a manager or I'm a supervisor. And I'm going to let people know that I respect you and that I know that you're going to do good work. So there's all these little psychological things that people can learn about, unconscious bias and allyship, that they can employ in their day-to-day life that can just make working as someone in a minority field better. And we all have seen the data around workplace environments being inhospitable and driving a lot of people to transition out. And so I asked, do the research. There's a lot of just small techniques. You don't have to mentor. I would like you to, but you can just learn about these things and how you can leverage your personal power to make a huge difference.
Yeah, echoing what both of you said, totally agree. The only thing that I would add on to that, and I'll keep it short, is money talks. Sometimes people come with this savior complex where they have to create the solution, but there are a number of programs that are operating, within our communities that may be severely underfunded and doing the work of major corporations, but it's people just, with boots on the ground grinding, and, find those organizations. And if you can't mentor, if you can't volunteer, your donations to their organizations, I think will go a long way. So find organizations that you can support, not just one time, but try to find something that you can get behind annually, whether it's, NASB, National Society of Black Engineers, NOMA, National Organization of Minority Architects, or some of the, more specific programs that are working with young people.
I'm just going to jump in on that too. Milwaukee Excellence, would love that. So mkeexcellence.org. We're really we're being what we say. And so we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. And we need more people that believe for our Black children. So if you can donate there, you can reach out to myself or our amazing founder, Maurice Thomas. But, like to echo what Michael said, organizations that help our youth right now need that.
I think there was a story about, I don't know if it was a story or a quote about the money needs to, there's very little money goes towards the Black-led organizations doing this. That in the community, on the boots on the ground, a lot of these corporations and groups and foundations give to the white-led organizations who are already don't really technically need it, but or underfund these Black-led organizations who are really doing some amazing work with very little resources. So I just want to point out that fact, that look for Black-led organizations, because again, the idea of representation matters is very, very important. Just a couple more. We're gonna let y'all go. I want to go back to Isha. You forgot to mention the lingo board, lingo kits. Tell me about that. What inspired that product? And I know, I think you and Lita are working together. Is that true? I feel like you know each other before that, but talk about the lingo and what inspired that kit and what's in the kit.
Sure. So Lingo is a self-paced at-home coding kit that teaches students some subjects. And we created it because we as a company were executing workshops in underserved districts and realizing that students did not have access to labs or materials that expose them to computer science. And so several years ago, my team got together and we said, hey, we want to create this box that we can just leave so that students can continue to tinker. And what we realized was that the students would save the components and make things. And so we had a student in the Bahamas actually who saved his kit and created a laser pointer with an actuator and ended up winning a prize at his school for an invention. And for that moment on, we were just like, you know what? Everything needs to come with a kit. And I created the name Lingo for the kit because technology is a language, and if you don't know it, you'll get left behind. And so the kits literally come in boxes like this. I know it's really small. It goes in the mail and you get it at home. And if you open it up, you have everything you need to do the activity. But more importantly, we have self-contained videos that walk you through all the steps that are needed to execute a lesson without having to have an instructor. Instructors are a bonus because our team, we all came from engineering backgrounds where we didn't have people that could explain our homework or could help us solve our problems. And so for us at Lingo, it was so important to be able to say, we're going to give you something that lets you build at home, but provides you with an online support resource and community so that you can literally go at your own pace to learn the content. And we were lucky because GE happened to stumble upon our kit, and we had a summer workshop with Howard Middle School and McKinley Tech here in DC. Going to Howard, you're probably familiar with both of those schools. But we also ended up in Milwaukee and 5 schools and had a successful pilot over the summer.
Cool. And final question for everybody, like, what are you looking forward to? What are you working on next? What are you excited about? Start with Michael.
Yeah, so for me, what I'm working on right now, this is the 5th year of the Hip Hop Architecture Camp. So this summer it will look different. We're not traveling around to every city and conducting, 20 to 25 camps in different cities at one time. We are going virtual again. But for, this 5th year of our program, we've created some strategic partnerships. So partnering with the Universal Hip Hop Museum, partnering with furniture company Herman Miller, American Family there in Milwaukee. So I'm looking forward to taking the Hip Hop Architecture Camp to the next level. One of the things that we do that's very unique is we bring in, instead of bringing in architects and contractors, interior designers, right, to talk about our profession. It's cool if I talk about architecture, but that's not going to get kids that excited. So no disrespect to my voice or any other voice within the profession. It's not a disrespectful thing, but I love to bring in people who have the pulse of our young people and have them talk about our profession. So this year, being able to scale up people who are involved with the Hip Hop Architecture Camp, where there's Angela Yee from the Breakfast Club, DeBrat there in Atlanta, Lupe Fiasco, Royce the 5'9". So getting some of the the best of the best in the culture and people who are out there to talk about architecture, to talk about design, is a victory for me.
Cool. Just remember, like, you can get a Howard University grad. That might help out too. Just letting you know. Lita, what about you? What do you got next? What's going on in your school? I know you talked to me during our podcast interview that you're doing some really cool things. You have some cool things planned for the school, but what's next for you?
Yeah, definitely. So as our school continues to grow and expand year after year, we are really looking forward to we want to partner with some local companies and businesses. I really am looking forward to our high school students being able to have some internships with some tech companies and local tech companies. So if anybody wants to partner with us, please make sure you do so. I'm also looking forward to our makerspace that we are developing right now and have made. And so it's going to be that place for students to go and just be creative and to get their, innovative, creative, learn some robotics, learn circuitry, learn, digital media arts, whatever, 3D printing, whatever it is, that their hearts desire. Again, I'm just looking forward to seeing our first class of Black students graduate. We are a company and an organization and a school that is Black owned and operated. and homegrown. And so our leaders are from Milwaukee. And so we're really looking forward to seeing our students graduate and just thrive in their next chapter of their lives. And so that's what Milwaukee Excellence and what I'm looking forward to in these next few years. And also my partnership with Stemborg and and that kit. And so me and Aisha are going to collaborate a lot more in the future.
Cool. Like, hopefully I'll see all three of you working on a project down the line, and I can hopefully tell that story. Again, this is a live podcast of Diverse Disruptors. I want to thank our guest, Aisha Bowe, aerospace engineer, CEO and founder of Stemborg, Michael Ford, designer and founder of Hip Hop Architecture Camp, and Lita Mallett, founding principal of Milwaukee Excellence Charter School. Thank you for taking the time to talk about this really fascinating, important topic on STEM and diversity in STEM, especially when it comes to people that look like us. Don't forget Diverse Disruptors. First season launches March 1st, but if you want a taste of it, there's a pilot episode featuring a very amazing woman, also a great story out of Seattle, now based in Atlanta, Sherelle Dorsey. She runs her own media outlet called The Plug, where she reports on the Black innovation economy. I've been a paying member since probably when she launched it. Great resources, tell stories like what we do here. Definitely check her out. You can find our podcast at radiomilwaukee.org or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I want to give a big shout out to Black Lens and Milwaukee Film for allowing us to do this on during Black History Month. So big ups to everybody who helped make this happen. I don't know if I'm supposed to stop or let Maureen come in or.
Part of what I think is so important about celebrating commemorative months like Black History Month is that they act as the beginning of the conversation, not the end. This is a great way to get people engaged around really important issues and interests within the Black community. And I think people are going to be really impressed with the diversity of films and events and the ease of access. We've worked really hard to make this a really accessible program. All of our events will be available on our MKE Film Facebook page, our Black Lens Facebook page, and our MKE Film YouTube page. So you can go to either of those pages and watch events for free. Our films will be available on our watchmkefilm.org page from February 1st through February 28th.